Hey there, everybody. Are you overwhelmed by all of the plethora of painting supplies to choose from out there when it comes to oil painting? You are not alone. I have been in your shoes myself, and I've seen so many countless artists waste so much time and money and energy, and sometimes even stop them from getting started painting to begin with because they are so overwhelmed and don't know where to start and don't know what to buy to get started. Well, if you missed part one video, be sure to check that out where I went over all of the oil colors, mediums, and brushes that I recommend. This video, I'm going to be covering everything that you need to know, everything that you absolutely need to get started and take your painting from start to finish. I'm going to be covering everything from palettes, which palettes are easiest to use, which easels I find the most beneficial and easiest to use, how to clean those pesky dirty oil brushes properly, and also how to varnish your finished dried oil painting and sign your painting like a pro. These are all the materials that you're going to need, and I'm going to give you my tips and tricks along the way as well. So let's dive in and get started. Okay. Supports. This would be the next thing that I would say, spend good money on if you can, and I'll give you some other options if you can't. And that is the canvases. Well, I don't really paint on stretched canvas anymore. I find that they are very hard to store. They are super easy to damage, if anything hits it, it's going to ruin your painting. It can cut through the canvas. I've even had a gorgeous painting once. A friend picked it up for me from a show, and she must have bumped it on the back of the canvas, and it didn't poke through the canvas, but just that bump on the back created like a bloom cracking in the varnish on that painting. And so, it kind of ruined my painting. And it was such a beautiful, it was an award-winning painting. So ever since then, I have just like, I stay away from stretched canvas. Okay, so what I prefer, I find this is super high quality. This is the best panel that you're going to be able to buy. These are Gesso Board by Ampersand Museum Series panel. Yes, these are expensive, but here's the thing, your paint, again, this is about oil painting materials for beginners who want to get the most beautiful results, right? If you really want to get right away a good experience with your painting and start off right, start off with good quality materials. And I'm telling you the things that you can go cheaper on, right? Like the cadmiums. So that you can avoid, so you can get the good stuff, the right stuff that's going to get you the best results. This is the number one pick, I would say. They do make a more affordable option of this. It is horrible. I think it's called the Artist Panel or the Mona Lisa Panel. Wait, the Speedball makes the Mona Lisa panel. Oh my gosh, that is like painting on glass or plastic. It is so horrible. This is perfect. You can get these in a variety of sizes. I do think that I will say these have kind of doubled in price since like 2017. I want to say an 8x10 right now ranges from $8 to $10 a piece. So they are more expensive. The thing that I do though, if I get a painting that I do not like, is once it dries, I take a sander, an automatic sander, and I sand off the painting and I reuse that panel. Now, if that is just like, whoa, there's no way I'm spending that amount on a panel, the next option would be the Centurions. Centurion Oil Primed, the OP stands for Oil Primed Deluxe Linen Panels. Okay, you can buy these in packs, multi-packs, different sizes. That's going to be a bit more affordable. If you're working with oils, if you're not working with oils, do not buy the Centurions that say OP because that is oil primed. Okay, and we all know you cannot, or maybe you don't know. I didn't know. So I shouldn't say that. I didn't know that you could not paint acrylic on top of oil. You can't. Right? So if you are working in acrylic, buy the one that does not have the OP. Okay, this is a really nice professional grade um, linen panel. And again, I just like the panels because they take up less space, they're easier to store, they're so much easier to varnish, they get less damaged in shipping or in, taking to a show and dropping off and, traveling and what all that. These are just the panels, they're like an eighth of an inch. Now, once you go over a certain size, I would say over size like 12 by 16, you're going to want to get the cradled panels or stretched canvas, okay, which I would say go for cradled panels um, or paint on what I'm about to show you and glue it to a masonite board if you're going over sizes 12 inches by 16. Now, the more affordable route, if you are really genuinely just getting started, I would recommend grabbing something like this Frederick's canvas pad. I actually like painting on this. Also, Strathmore oil painting canvas pad is good quality too. And so what you can do is you can tape these, pull out a sheet. As you can see, I haven't even opened this one yet, but let me just open it right quick. You can pull out a sheet, you can tape it to oh, at least I thought I could get it. You can tape it to just like a simple piece of foam core, or what I use is just a primed masonite panel, which you can buy those from Amazon, of course, or you can go to Home Depot or something like that and grab masonite board. Okay, but this is a pad of like, there's 10 sheets, right? And you could cut these to size, you could cut them down smaller if you want to, but basically you can paint right on this pad if you wanted to. But the other option would be you can pull this off and tape it, but you can see this is real canvas. It's not canvas paper. I don't recommend canvas paper pads. Make sure that you are buying that it says it's actually canvas, okay? Now a higher quality, I can't remember how much that costs. That might be about $10 or $15 for 10 sheets. So that's going to be the most affordable option. And then if you get a painting that you really like, you could either matte and frame it, or what I do is I have a Gorilla spray glue and I just buy, um, like a wood panel and spray glue that to the wood panel if I get a painting that I like once it's dry. Okay, I did that whenever I was painting in Europe as well, just to have something lightweight, to take with me. And then whenever I brought them home, I glued them to, little basic panels. Okay, so the next option, this is going to be better quality, of course. And this is, again, that oil painting deluxe oil primed linen from Centurion. This time it's in sheets. You can buy this in multiple packs. This is linen, not cotton canvas. Linen is going to be better for oil painting technically, and it is real linen that has been cut to size. So that would be my next option for you. And that's going to be a little bit more expensive than the Strathmore or the Fredericks pads, but good quality and cheaper, I would say, than buying the individually wrapped. So if you're just like, I don't even know if I can get anything yet of quality, I would start with those pads and just start painting, just get going. Okay, let's go next to, next step is going to be what you need to clean. Okay, there's so many different cleaning things out there, and I have bought them all. Okay. And when I first started oil painting, I even bought Terpenoid Natural, thinking I could paint with that because the teacher had Terpenoid on the list. And I thought, well, Terpenoid Natural must be better. I was using that as my painting medium. So this just shows you how clueless I was in the beginning. And so I know that if I had no clue, then there's other people out there who don't either. So that's, hopefully this is helpful to you. Okay, so cleaning brushes. You are going to want to get this from Gamsol, is the odorless mineral spirits from Gamblin's Gamsol. This does not smell at all. You're going to want to get the silicoil jar is the one I would recommend. I do not use mineral spirits. I don't clean while I'm painting during the painting because it gets my brush too wet, and I do not use this as a medium. I didn't mention this during the mediums, but the traditional, I guess the traditional medium for centuries has been a mixture of basically oil and mineral spirits and sometimes a little bit of varnish in the mix. I just find that it's way too wet of a medium and waters down my oil paint. And I want my oil paint to look like oil paint and feel like oil paint, not like watercolor. So I only use this to clean my brushes with. So for those of you out there who want that like painterly look, try to stay away from using that, using thinner as your medium is what I would say. If you like thicker paint, impasto, brushwork, I would recommend that you stay away from using that as your medium. And try to also not just clean out your brush every single time. You don't need to do that. I just wipe with paper towels, okay? So Viva paper towels, or you can get the blue shop towels. Those are both high quality. And I just use this and wipe out the paint out of my brush as needed whenever I'm switching from colors to colors. Okay, you're gonna need the silicoil jar. This is about $10. And I don't know if I can show you this, but you just fill it up with this has a coil in it, and you're gonna run your brush over the coil. You can see how nasty this is. Basically that's all of the oil paint, the mineral spirits. It's a paint stripper. It's a paint thinner. That's why I don't like painting with it. It strips the oil out of the paint. That is the purpose of it. Hello. So I don't like using it for that reason. But basically what this does is you use the coils. They're not going to damage your brush, and you just run them over the coils until you get, all of that paint out of the inside of the brush. And then after it'll look super dirty after you first wash your brushes. I just wash mine. And then all of that oil sediment, float down to the bottom of the jar. So eventually you'll want to kind of clean out the jar. I tend to just pour out after that sediment comes down to the bottom or the sides of the jar. I'll pour out like the cleaner thinner, and then I'll take a paper towel and just wipe out the inside of that jar to kind of get out the excess. Okay, the last step in cleaning your brushes, and this is especially important if you're using those hog hair bristle brushes, is getting yourself a good brush, a final brush cleaner and brush preserver, a 2-in-1. This is actually supposed to be for your hands. This is the Old Masters Artist Hand Soap. It comes in a green bar like this. You could maybe store it better than me. It's just a Ziploc baggie. You could get yourself like a soap dish thing or something, but I like this so much better. I think that especially for my hog hair bristle brushes, this really, really conditions these bristles. You have to remember this is natural hair. It's like your natural hair. It needs conditioning. So the thinner is going to dry out the brush, and then to get the rest of any oil or paint out of the brush, you have to use a soap, But you want that, you want to follow that. You either want to follow that with a conditioner or you want to use a 2-in-1 product like this, like I use. This is so good. I've used this for almost 2 decades now. And they actually make another one, which everybody tends to buy. It comes like in a big tub or a small tub. That is the one that's supposed to be for the brushes. But I just find that it doesn't work as well as this one, which is the artist hand soap. So many other products out there that are like, say the same thing. And I've tried them all. And this one, I think for the price of this and how long it lasts, this is the best bang for your buck and the best result, I feel, too. Okay, thing else I forgot to mention during the oil paint section, but it does have to do with kind of cleaning, right? Cleaning and maintaining. You want to get yourself one of these, what's this from? Tube ringer. You want to get yourself one of these, handy dandy tube ringers. This just makes it to where, you can get any paint that's kind of left down in the bottom. You basically use that ringer to squeeze the paint up so that you make sure that you use every drop, right? Every drop. Okay. Next step is going to be your palette or your easel. I've had so many different things for this over the last 17 years. And so I'm just going to share with you what works for me. And my preference is a pochade. Okay, this is basically this is like an all-in-one system. Okay, this one is the Sienna plein air pochade. A lot of times they'll say, oh, this is for plein air painting, but this is what I use in my studio. The reason why I like this is because the palette and the canvas holder are together. I like the Siennas because you can get a glass palette, which is super easy to clean with razor blades. And then this part holds your canvas or your panel, and you can raise up and down. I like the medium-sized box in this, but they have smaller and they have bigger. It also comes with a tray. This is going to hold your brushes. This is somewhat heavy, so yes, you can travel with it, but this weighs, you might think heavy, this weighs like 5 pounds, which you don't think is a lot, but by the time you get your brushes and your oils and everything else that you need, your backpack will, if you're traveling or with your supplies, like if you're traveling to a class, you can take this with you. I like that about it too. Your pack will probably weigh about 10 pounds. So the other option for this that I recommend is by Yugo, and that is going to be even smaller and thinner and much lighter weight. Like theirs tend to range around 2 pounds. Please don't buy the ones that have the tray underneath with Sienna anyway that stores paints and all that jazz. Way too heavy. You're not going to be able to support it. Here's the other, so talking about how to support it. One thing you can do with these is you can just set them on a table and use them just like that, like a tabletop easel. You can set this in your lap if you are going outside and doing landscape painting. So you don't have to necessarily have a tripod for this, but the other option, if you want to raise and lower it up and down, is to get a tripod. So that's next up on my list for any pochade. And my preference is the Dolica Pro line. Again, this is both affordability, stability, because it's got enough weight to it to hold a heavier box like that Sienna pochade. Now, obviously, if you don't want a all-in-one thing like that, like I prefer, you can buy a separate palette and, either a standing easel or a tabletop easel or aluminum easel, whatever you want to do. There's tons of options. I just want to give you, here's over the years for me, what I have found to be the most useful, most versatile. And I've had, like I say, I've had everything from the cheapest aluminum easel from Walmart, Walmart or Michael's or Hobby Lobby, um, to a very expensive heavy wooden easel, right? So it just kind of depends on how you like to create. For me, I just find those push-saws to be the most versatile. I can travel with them. I can pack them in a suitcase. I can put them in a backpack. And I can they close up, you know, so I don't have to worry about the paint, you know, cleaning off the palette or anything like that. If you do want to have a separate palette, um, you can, what I would recommend is getting this Jack Richardson Gray Matters paper palette. This is the smaller pad 6x9. I use that for little small plein air paintings sometimes, or just little small studies that I want to do if I don't have my pochade with me. But you can buy this in larger size too. But it is gray, which is very helpful and when it comes to judging values. And I also love that it does have some educational content in here about colors and color mixing and the value scale. So that's nice too. So that's what I would recommend if you don't want to buy one of these pochades that have a palette pre-built in. My preference is the glass palette because you can easily clean that with razor blades. The Yugo palettes, I believe, are plastic, and they do come with like a plastic scraper that's kind of similar to a razor blade. Okay, are you still here? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if any of this has made sense. You know, what has been kind of the biggest aha for you, or anything that's been confusing that I can help clarify for you further. The last thing I'm going to talk about is signing and varnishing, because I know that's another big question that I often get from beginning artists. How do you varnish? What do you use to varnish with? And how do you sign your painting? I already talked about signing, and the main thing on signing is to get yourself a small round. Again, from Silver Brush Ruby Satin, like in a size 0 or a size 1. Or you can get a shorter, you know, shorter kind of liner brush. But that would be my preference as a round. I just sign it like I'm signing my name. The other thing, you know, I'd like to do, it's easier to sign with the painting flat, in my opinion. That way, if you're using paint, and you do want to use enough medium with this so that the paint really flows with that kind of brush. Oftentimes I will just scrape in with like a wooden skewer my signature on smaller pieces or plein air studies. That's super fast and easy, and I just sign it like I'm signing my name. But obviously there's so many other ways that you can come up with to sign your name. And some artists really come up with like little logo looking signatures, or they want a style to their signature. I just sign my name like I typically sign my name. Um, or they do their initials or something like that. Okay, so these are just like barbecue skewers, essentially. Just has a sharp point on it. And you can sign your panels, especially that way, but also canvas you can sign it with. Okay, varnishing. This is another kind of sticky subject, literally sticky. Because there's so many varnishes, there's so many, I don't know, like misunderstandings, misgivings about varnishes out there, misinformation about varnishes out there. There's old books out there that tell you, you have to wait 6 months to a year to varnish your painting. No, you do not. We have to understand that some of those books were written in a time period too, where they were trying to account for, like, if somebody's just applying paint right out of the tube and it's this thick and it's a cadmium paint, which takes longer to dry than, say, an earth color, right? So we have to understand that they're kind of trying to cover all their bases and, you know, all the unknowns. So for me, using a speed drying medium, my paintings are going to dry much faster. And while I do apply thicker paint, most of my paintings are dry even with thick paint or less medium, because I don't use medium in my light areas. I only use this to start the painting and in the darks, FYI. But even in those thickest lights, my painting will be dry usually within a week, okay, maybe 2 weeks maximum. Okay, and at that point, it is safe to varnish your painting. If you really want to be on the safe side, if you're painting it all like how I paint, I would say you could wait like a month. I think sometimes waiting too long causes problems because if you've used like a lot of umbers, like you see in some of my paintings behind me, where is it? Over here. Sorry, I'm backwards. Um, Sometimes those kind of pigments can start to want to resist the varnish, which is such a pain in the butt if that happens. Okay, so what I use to varnish, and it's not everybody's favorite, but again, I'm going for here is what works the best. You know, I've tried everything and this is what works the best. And the downside of this is that it is freaking stinky. So you do have to make sure that you do it outside or in ventilation, have good ventilation. You don't want to do this like in your bedroom. Oh my God, because the odor of this is so strong. But this cures so evenly and cures so quickly. It'll dry so quickly. And I really prefer the gloss varnish. So this is Winsor Newton Artist Gloss Varnish is what this is. They also make one for water mixable oils. It is removable, although I will say it is challenging to remove this because it is really a solid varnish. It's so good. Um, and um, and it has UV protection. So this is just going to bring back any of your colors, make, you know, sometimes certain colors kind of set back is what it's called, and it looks maybe a little bit chalky. But I basically pour this right out of the jar, which I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like that either. Well, I don't care. I do what works. For me, I do what's easiest, most convenient, and most affordable, and gets the job done, gets the job done well enough, right? Anyways, there's just I don't know. There's a lot of like stickler advice out there and bougie advice out there that I just think is kind of silly. You can pour this right out of the tube onto your panel. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can pour it into like a little jar or metal tin or something like that. And here's the other thing that I know is not going to be maybe popular, but this is what I use, and I've not had any problems with my paintings in 17 years. Okay, so in fact, some of the other techniques for varnishing and other varnishes I've used is what's caused me problems. I never ever have a problem with this stuff. As long as you're not varnishing like in a freezing temperature room, you're not going to have problems with this varnish. It stinks, so you're going to need to safety first, protect yourself, right? But anyways, so I just use these chip brushes. I buy them in bulk from Amazon. I like a 2-inch just because it covers the job fast. I tend to varnish a bunch of paintings at once, so I'll wait till I get, you know, maybe all my paintings for that month done and then lay them all out flat on a level surface to varnish them. I like these. Yes, they are disposable, but this stuff is so strong and so sticky. Oh my gosh, you're never going to get that out of your brush. You do not need a $50 varnishing brush. Thank you very much, art world. We don't need that. You know, you have to consider that a lot of these products, you know, they've got a captive audience, and so I find that artists tend to fall into a few different traps, and one is they think they have to buy every little thing for every little thing, when no, a basic painter's chip brush that has been used for staining and varnishing for centuries, it will get the job done. It is not flashy, it is not bougie, it is not expensive, it's not going to make you feel good. It makes me feel good because I'm not wasting my money and time. Anyways, so you know, these are just cheap throwaways, and throw them away in the trash after I'm done because you're not going to be able to reuse it after you're done. Okay, that's it, everybody. Let me know any questions that you have in the comments below. And also, if you would like a video on things like varnishing or framing, maybe even shipping or something like that, let me know. And I'm happy to create, information like that, videos like that, if it's of value to you. Let me know what else you're looking for here. And if you like this video, again, subscribe, like, and check out the next video I have for you, which is going to help you be able to build confidence and paint, with more, build your skill faster and paint with more joy and more satisfaction, get better results a lot quicker. All right, happy painting, everybody. Keep glowing and keep growing. Bye for now.